understand that well, and many of you have yet to understand that. Mr. Henry Pugh, he at that time was known as the father of distillation in Provence, France. He was known to have distilled everything, including rocks. And it took Gary 5 years to meet him and be invited to his mountain, where he learned so much. Dr. Farag in Egypt, some of you may remember when we brought Dr. Farag to Utah. Great, great mentor and teacher. And Gary and I were at the Temple of Isis on the island of Philae. And one of the guards came up to him and tapped him on the shoulder and said, "I know why you're here. I want to show you what you come to see." And he thought, this guy just wants money. 3 times it happened. And so with curiosity and maybe not so smart, he went with the guard. He locked the gate behind him. And he went up on top and into a room, and there he saw the Egyptian hieroglyphics of the old ancient Egyptian ritual of the cleansing of the flesh and the blood, which is part of the raindrop. We don't even really know that. Wow. It was a fabulous learning time for Gary. Look at that, an old sketch when he was really projecting distillation into the future. Imagine what we have today compared to that little sketch. It's a treasure to have, to be able to see. Look at that. Distributors came to help him, cutting in that little quarter-acre plot and welding the 2 pressure cookers together to distill his very first lavender. Oh my goodness, those early days were something else. St. Mary's, the beginning, injecting microbes and foliage feed into the ground that had such a low acid pH that nothing would grow. How many of you have been to St. Mary's and seen the beautiful, beautiful... Woo! But then he decided he wanted more. Being an old logger, it was pretty easy for him to cut the logs out in the backyard, peel them, put them in tar, put them in the ground. He built the first cookers in the garage of the old farmhouse. And look how we carried him down to the site. Oh, we were so proud of that, let me tell you. That was a great and glorious day. And look what it's becoming. Look at little Jacob. How they love the fields. They love the lavender. Many of you have been to Melissa Harvest. Remember the tarps and trying to prevent Melissa from falling on the ground? That was hard. But Gary got smart. He invented applications to the tractors, the conveyors, and all of that. But it got bigger. We needed more. We needed more cookers. So St. Mary's evolved into what most of you know. Here he is with Dr. Casabianca. Sue Chow with the first GC in the old Payson building. France. The beginning there for so many of you who live in Europe who can go and be a part of that. The old Riverton building that was 8,000 square feet that had maybe 5,000 feet that were usable. The story is fun to read. The old Payson building. Mona, look at that. You see that cooker up there on the top? That was all he had for convention. He practically cried because he didn't have anything to show you. He wanted so much to have it in the ground. He wanted it hooked up where it was cooking and you could see him making oil, and it didn't happen. And what is Mona today? Woo! Look at that. And Marcel, his teacher in France, came to Utah. I'll never remember when we drove down the freeway out in front of the lavender field, and the car was barely stopping when he opened the door and jumped out and started maneuvering, running through the lavender field to get to the distiller. He was so excited, and he said, standing in front of all of those attending convention who were at the farm, the student has now become the teacher. One of the greatest compliments Gary's ever had. How many of you have been to a 5K run through the lavender fields? The only place in the world where that can happen. Ecuador. How many have been to Ecuador? Let me tell you something. When it rains, the dirt has so much clay in it, it becomes just like ice. And you could literally stand at the top and slide all the way to the bottom on the road. Oh my gosh, it was frightful during the monsoons and trying to drive down that road. Melissa. No, not Melissa. That's Ylang-a-Lang. How many of you planted Ylang-a-Lang at the farm? Those little tiny trees, and look what they've become. Many people ask for GCs. Here they are. You have them in the book. A few for reference. How many of you have been to the spa, the Nova Vita spa? Anybody have a chocolate mask with essential oils? Oh my goodness, how exciting. That's Karen Malone there in the back, in the tub. Everybody had a great time. Sometimes there wasn't enough room for anybody else to get in. The old school. You all know about that. Gary, the Frankincense Trail. He was driven to ride every inch of that old trail. And he's walked the majority of it. Yemen, the warehouse where bags and bags and bags of resin are stored and sold, shipped all over the world. A frankincense tree on Socotra Island. Petra, Shabwa, one-time ancient home of the Queen of Sheba, in the forbidden zone where no foreigner or even a Yemeni who didn't live there could go in the last 50 years. But Gary waited and waited and waited and was determined that he was going to go. So he did. A lot of people think Gary didn't really go to Somalia. Those are the three vans with the guards and the machine guns, and Gary was in the middle of it. The gentleman at the top. Yeah, there's only top right. I'm trying to think who's in your right or your left. He is the chief of the clan, and the clan is a large group of people, like a large family. They are the ones who protect the frankincense groves, the trees, and they are the ones who do the harvest. And there's Gary, typically in a tree. Look at that beautiful resin. That's Fariana, the real Fariana. And that's a Gileadensis tree, balm of Gilead, growing in Yemen and growing in Somalia. Highlands. What a journey that was. Down there in the corner, that was an old, kind of like a warming camp trailer that Gary bought and stuck out in the middle of the field so they could have a place to go and eat and get out of the freezing cold wind. Many people ask, how does Gary know how to drive a semi? How can he drive on those horrible, icy, snowy roads? How does he know how to do all of that? Many of you don't know that Gary drove up on the Alaska Pipeline for 2 years. He was called the Mustang Man. private. These are rare photos that no one has ever seen. And the story is told here, a smidgen of the story. It's magnificent what he did. This is where he got so much of his experience. And you come back and you see here he is with the semi again. But a modern semi, a new semi, pulling chips and going to St. Mary's. But St. Mary's was a treacherous time. It was a difficult time. And only Eldon was willing to make the trip with him. We had a lot of people come, men with CDLs who volunteered. They only made it through once. And they didn't make it a second time. There was one gentleman who made it to St. Mary's and was so frightened that he went straight to the Spokane airport and left. It was a scary time. So the decision was made, since we are going to continue to have conifers in Young Living, that we'll build a distillery up north. And that's what you see here. You know where this is? This is Taiwan in the tea fields. It's a magnificent picture. Typical of Gary. It's either smelling, tasting, breathing, or looking at the distillery itself. The cookers, the separators. How many of you know where this is? This is the old ruins of Engedi, where frankincense, myrrh, and balsam were distilled. Balsam, liquid gold of the Bible, only the word liquid was left out. Here, the greenhouse, where they're growing more trees. Madagascar, Kenya, Northern Lights. How many of you have actually been up there and seen the Northern Lights farm? I bet there's more than 10 hands that go up in here. Carol and Ben are sitting over there. Ben was a general contractor. His son Corey was the supervisor on the job, and they have done a magnificent job together. Because we didn't have any black spruce oil, and black spruce is a component of the #1 blend in Young Living Valor.